Slow Living. In this video, I'm going to show you how I flipped an old knit that I found at an op shop into a little two-piece, sort of like a leisurewear set, but it sort of verges on sleepwear. I've seen similar pants and shorts like this around. It's a bit of a trend at the moment with the really thick rib style in like, you know, nice wide leg pants or these little bike shorts that I did. So this is a really good way to try it out without buying into fast fashion and all the negative environmental effects and social effects of that. Instead, you can find an old knit at an op shop, or maybe you have one in your wardrobe that hasn't been worn for a while. You can get that out, give it a bit of a chop and turn it into something new and to sort of upcycle your clothing that way. I'll have a few more videos coming up that you can watch where I flip things a few different ways, actually, using different techniques, different styles, different garments. So I hope you find that interesting. I also do tutorials on how to sew clothes from scratch if you're a beginner sewer and you'd like to get into that, or how to mend things as well. And I also do a few thrift hauls because I do love a good thrift. I do love to thrift.
So on this particular thrifting occasion, I went to Savers and I picked up a whole bunch of knits. Like I said, most of them under 10 Australian dollars, few of them over, minus that hat that Tim bought that was $3. But anyway, the one that I'll be working with today was $9.99. It's from Sports Girl, it's a size M, and it's really perfect for that sort of thick rib style that I was after, which is the main reason that I bought it. I sort of had this thrift idea in mind when I was sort of searching for knits at Savers, so I was really happy that I found something. It does have a little stain there, but you know, I can definitely work around that. And because the original style of this garment was very oversized, there was a lot of fabric to work with. It's a viscose nylon cotton blend, so I definitely wouldn't buy this if it was full price or even on sale at the shops, because blended fabrics are really difficult to maintain. I think that they just have a nasty feel about them. But hey, I am a fabric snob. I tried it on, this is what it looks like, but of course the transformation is going to be very different. As with most of my flips, I find it easiest to find a pair of shorts or top that is going to be a template, and then I can simply trace around that and make adjustments. So if you do that, you can fold your shorts in half. This is the general shape of bike shorts. If you're looking for sort of the pattern for a pair of shorts and you don't have your own pair that you could use, that's the style to aim for. I sort of had to play around with how I could lay out the shorts to obviously make the most of the fabric that I had, but also to achieve the best fit, which is a little tricky when you're doing flips and you've got obviously very limited fabric. You do want to make sure that the direction of the stretch of your shorts is going around your body, otherwise you're going to have a hard time stretching those shorts to fit. And also, very importantly, you need enough for seam allowance. So do leave as much as probably at least an inch for the hem, and also a little bit along the front and back crotch, the inseam, and as well as the top, so the waistline where we're going to attach elastic. Try and find your elastic first, because that will dictate how much seam allowance you will need to leave. Now I'm just going to trim off some of the existing seams that were in the old garment, and then I'm also trimming off a little bit from the crotch just to see what the shape's like. I actually kept the side seam because that actually worked really well. It would save me having to sew a seam there anyway. And then when I was happy with that shape, I just flipped it over and cut another pair from the other side of the old top. I took a tiny bit more off the inner seams of the fronts because generally the back pieces need a little more room for your butt and the back of your legs, and that's all that I've done there. Now you can see me pinning the back crotches together as well as the front crotches together, and just make sure that the right sides of your fabric are together. You want the good side of your fabric on the outside of your pants and the bad side on the inside, of course. So to stitch these together, you can use an overlocker or a serger, or you can actually use a straight stitch in this instance if your rib has enough stretch in it. Otherwise, I would recommend using a zigzag stitch. So once you've sewn the front and back crotches, you can sew the side seams as well. I didn't have any, so that's why I didn't have to sew them. And now you can sew the inner leg seam. Try and line up your front and back crotch. I'm showing you there that there was quite a lot of bulk in the middle section, so you need to line it up, pin it together and get it nice and flat before you try and sew over it. When you've done that, it's a really good idea to try on your shorts and see how they are starting to look and fix anything before we start to put the elastic in and finish things off. To put the elastic in, we want to measure it around your waist, get it at a comfortable point where it's not too loose, not too tight, cut it and then sew it together so it's a continuous loop, and then we can attach that to the top of the shorts and zigzag it in. To make things easy, divide your elastic into 4 equal parts, and then you can pin each of these to the front crotch, back crotch, and the side seams so that you can distribute your elastic evenly. You can pin that all in place before you start sewing. So to begin sewing this part, you definitely need to use a zigzag stitch or an overlocker. So I prefer to use the stepped zigzag. It's basically a zigzag split into 3 little stitches, and I just find that that works a lot better with tracking the fabric. Once you've done that, I basically folded it over to sort of hide that elastic, and I'm going to sew over that same line of zigzag stitching again with a zigzag stitch to secure the elastic in place. Now it's time to finish off the hem of the shorts. In hindsight, I could have left this raw because I think it would have had a nicer finish to it, but in any case, I decided to finish it. So I folded it up, pressed it with an iron in place, that will make it easier to sew, and then I basically zigzagged that as well. It seems to always happen with domestic machines and doing these hems, but they came out a little bit bubbly, but that's okay. Once you give it a press, everything should sort of go back to normal, and it didn't look too bad. So that's the shorts done, and now this is how much fabric I have left to get the top, and luckily the stretch is going in the right direction for me to work with. This is the style that I used for inspiration. I basically took that kind of singlet style and made it into a top instead of a bralette. To begin, I decided to use the sides of the existing knit top and use them as straps, so I carefully cut them off, and then again I found it easiest to find my own bralette, which had a very similar cut and fit to the style that I was aiming to achieve. And then I prepared the fabric that I had left over so that I could cut out just the front piece, because obviously the front and back pieces for this singlet are going to be quite different. Then I cut out some shaping for the sides. It makes it a little bit more fitted, and then I basically used the front piece as a template to get the back piece, but I changed the neckline. Then I put the right sides together, pinned the side seams, and then overlocked them. So when I was thinking about how to finish the top of this top, I definitely did it the hard way. I decided to do a facing instead of using narrow binding, just because I have issues with narrow binding and I really don't like how it looks. So I chose to create this facing, and basically that means you trace off the same shape along the top. It doesn't have to go all the way down like a full lining, but it's basically creating like a mini lining that's gonna help finish that neckline really nicely. I didn't have a lot of fabric left, so I basically had to piece together little bits and pieces across the back and the front to try and get the same shape. In the end, it actually didn't turn out too bad, but I definitely made things more difficult by trying to add this bit of elastic along the top of the neckline. I thought that that would reinforce it and sort of make it sit a little bit nicer, but in the end, I'm not sure that it was worth it because it was very tricky, very fiddly, and things would have been a lot simpler if I just stuck to having no elastic there and finishing things off that way. So if you're having a go yourself, ditch the elastic and just sew along the top. Be careful to put your straps in before you finish that. You should sandwich them in between your facing and between your top, with the majority of the strap going down inside your top. And that's so that once you have sewn around the edge of your neckline, you will flip it the right way out and your strap will be the right way out. So this is what your top should look like after you've flipped it. You've got that sort of mini lining on the inside. Now we can press it down so everything is sitting nice and flat. And then I actually top stitched along that edge using a zigzag so that the facing stays on the inside of the garment and everything sits really nicely. My top was sitting a little bit weird, so I basically gathered this front little bit to finish off the ruching, and then I just sewed up and down that little bit with a needle and thread. It would be a better idea to use some elastic to stretch that out and then create that little ruffle that way instead, but like I said, my top was sitting really weird and this actually sort of helped to fix the shape. In the end, the facing wasn't a bad idea because I could put these little padded cups in. To hold them in place, I would probably have to pin them either to the facing or somehow, but they did come in handy. And then the last thing to do is to finish off the hem of the top. So I would suggest putting the top on and then seeing how long or short you would like it to be before cutting anything. Once you've done that, make sure you leave some seam allowance as well. I generally leave about 1 inch, and then you can fold it up, pin it in place, give it a little press so that everything sits really nicely, and then zigzag it. Give it one final press and your top is complete.
So I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun doing this flip. I guess you could wear it at home, you could wear them separately if you were going to go out, but basically it's comfortable and it's been flipped from an old knit. It did take a few goes. Camel toe is a real thing for bike shorts, and especially with ribs because there's like a lot of stretch. I'll let you in on a little secret. The irony with camel toes is that there's too much fabric in the shorts or the pants, not that there's not enough. Because often you think camel toe is when things are too tight, and so, you know, things are just bulging where they shouldn't be. And so you assume that it's because the shorts or pants are too tight, when in fact the irony is that they're actually too big in that crotch area. And because it's too big, it means that there's too much fabric, and that fabric sort of shapes around the wrong areas, accentuating what we call the camel toe. Anyway, that was a fun fact. I hope you enjoyed this flip. I had a lot of fun doing it. It's actually part of a series that I'm doing. I picked up 5 or 6, I don't know, 7, maybe 8 knits from Savers thrift store. So they're all secondhand, all around $10 or under, and I took on the challenge to flip them into something new. So if you're into thrift flips and just secondhand fashion, sustainable fashion, that kind of thing, head over to my channel and subscribe. Give the videos a thumbs up if you enjoy them, because it really supports the channel, and it also lets me know that there are people watching and that some of the stuff that I'm doing is useful, because I really enjoy doing it. That's all for now. I'll see you again next time. Bye. I don't usually work with ribbed knits that are ready to wear. No, that's not it. I hope you enjoy that series. That's all for now, and take care of yourself. See you again.